Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I'm putting my email in the chat. If anybody feels, a couple of people have asked me how to get the reading that we read here. So if you email me, I will be happy to send it to you. Um, so the gentleman that I've asked to share, there's someone else in this room that knows him much better than I do. Susan, would you like to introduce him?
You didn't give me a heads up on that one. Okay, well, you guys are in for a treat. This is my hubby, my best friend, my sober man that we've ridden recovery together, ups and downs of sobriety and life and everything that goes along with it. And so grateful to be sharing that road with him. And thank you for asking him to speak, and go for it, MG.
Oh, Dawn, thank you. I'm a grateful alcoholic. My name is Mitchell, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. It's even though this is not an AA meeting, I'm devoted to AA and would be dead or in a jail cell or overdosed or have killed somebody in a car or some other insanity under the influence of alcohol if I had not found AA. And so I can never say thank you to AA enough for the life I have and for the opportunity. Well, I want to kind of read something that I read every day, and then I'm going to get into the talk here. It's something I read by the Dalai Lama, and a precious human life. Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I'm fortunate to have woken up. I'm alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, that could never have become the deepest aspiration in my soul if I hadn't become sober and released from the mania of alcohol. And so I was thinking, I was talking to Kurt a little bit about it, and I thought it would be kind of helpful to kind of talk about the tremendous lack of emotional sobriety I had and how it developed over time. I think that would be a very good perspective, really, because I think that depending on where you are in this kind of adventure and journey, some of the stuff after many, many years, I've been sober a real long time, is different. And there were very important experiences I had along the way that planted the seeds for waking up and having a change of heart through the, both through just a fire to be part of the burning fire that the God consciousness gave me when I got sober. I just got lit up. I don't know how it happened. I just got lit up with enthusiasm and some kind of energy. I don't even, I know it wasn't me. I was broken down bad, and a lot of scary things were hanging over my head. And I looked older than I am today, and I was really pretty broken. And my mind was in complete chaos. And so, I realized that when I came into AA, I was so completely confused. I was impulsive. Overreacting was the way I did it. And I also was a child of an addict. So I'm kind of a double winner from the beginning, from 5 years old. And so right away, when the family disease started to affect me at a young age, I became a 5-year-old motivational speaker. To try to, I could have put me on Johnny Carson, I could have, anybody needed advice, talk to the little 5-year-old. And so I was trying to cheer my mom up, who was an addict and chronically depressed, and my father, who had mental health issues. And so right away, I was gripped by this insecurity. And I became, kind of a fixer and an advice giver, and to try to. And I realized that was the way I felt some meaning. It was the way I didn't feel so alone. But But then the horrible calculus of the family disease, which is so devastating, is that I felt that their problem was my problem, and that when I tried to help them, I failed, and then I felt like a failure. So that was the first beginning of experiencing the family illness, and so and that's extremely confusing. So I didn't feel like I could speak up. My needs weren't met. I was, 11 years old. I tried to kill myself. I mean, it was heavy. So anyway, so when I found alcohol, it was like love at first sight. Thank you, God, that I could start drinking and start to feel normal, and it became instantly a major part of my life as a teenager, well, for many years. So I was not aware, just like when we come into sobriety, I couldn't tell you like how I felt. I didn't know that, I didn't know that I was released from drinking, when I first came in. I didn't have that awareness. I did not. I didn't know that. I thought, I was going to meetings got me sober. I thought my sponsor got me sober. I know that these were participatory, important things I did, but, part of the whole path of sobriety and the cycle, the whole stages of sobriety, involved different moments and different experiences where there was wisdom sharing from the language of the heart. And that was really what began to plant the seeds, is the people's. I got sober in New York City, and I met some really amazing men and women who sometimes didn't talk too much, who just lived the program. They were not big into the big book, some of them, but the way they lived, the light shining from them, the way they behaved, the way the selfless service that they provided others without asking for any, without looking for any fanfare. I was kind of surrounded by a lot of people from the tough love spectrum of people who were taking the samurai, the kind of people who used to say to me, if you're looking for sympathy, it's between shit and syphilis in the dictionary, from those tough bastards, who used to say that to me, to really very kind and warm, and so I got all of it, but I was overreacting all the time, and I didn't understand, like Bill says, I took a lot of wallops in sobriety. I took a lot of wallops because I was grandiose with an inferiority complex. I didn't understand at all that my mind was the problem. I had no idea that this was going to be the problem, and I just after going through traumatic things, I didn't know that the memory of those things was what I was reacting to. I had no idea. They felt as real to me now as they did then. And I had no perspective. And as I went through the 12 steps, even my understanding of the steps was, I had the understanding I could have at the time. Okay. And so I remember, some really pivotal moments for me were using the 10-step and experiencing a calming of my rage without picking up a drink. I all of a sudden, and I start to, and I'd call my sponsor up, and I'd have these overreactions because I was feeling threatened by everything. And this is one of the things that really, I didn't know that my security instinct was being threatened by so many things. I didn't know my insecurities were on fire. I didn't know any of this stuff. I was just it was like AI moving me around. I was reacting to all of it. I was just reacting to all these hidden, like Bill says, unconscious conflicts within me. I had no idea what they were. And when I used the program, I didn't get to the root cause. I could not get to the root causing conditions. It wasn't possible for me the first 5 years, first 10 years. I used the program, and I practiced the best I could to be aligned with the principles each day. But the understanding I had was still on fire, and my emotions were so strong, and that I had to go through. I had to get outside help with this, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross grief counselor. I was beating the shit out of a telephone book with a pipe to get out anger. I mean, I had to do these things that, I didn't know. And what started to happen was that the spirit in AA, and the spirit that I didn't even understand, was leading me to places, and I was following, to the therapist, to to a place called Graymore, an ecumenical retreat center, where I met a nun named Sister Claire, who became my spiritual friend for 25 years. I was just being led to places, and I ended up in a spiritual support group, with a defrocked priest and a nun who had the hots for me. And so, like, I didn't know that I was like a lost child, I didn't know what the hell was going on for me. You know what I mean? But what was happening though is that I met a lot of people with tremendous kindness and real care, and it didn't matter so much what they said to me. It mattered how I experienced them. And I really did. I have been a very fortunate man to experience profound love from people in AA and outside of AA. But in AA, as my spirit, Mary, always says, I'm a seasoned beginner. I say I'm a seasoned journeyer. I just, all of a sudden, the seeking the seeking took over. It was the God consciousness moving through, it was the light shining, leading me places. And I was just saying yes. I was saying yes to sobriety. I was saying yes to service. I was saying yes to all these things. And sometimes we don't know till we look through the rearview mirror, how these changes have happened. And they didn't happen because I willed them. I thought in the beginning that sobriety was more transactional. I did. I thought it was more like, I want to get an A. I wanted to get an A in AA. I was very determined. I felt like a loser in life, so let me get an A in AA. And I went after, my sobriety like a maniac. I mean, I was sponsoring a lot of people, cleaning up all the. I mean, I was just driven because I thought I had to be different than other people. I had to do more than other people. And one of the things that as we start to get more woken up, we begin to, we hear in AA, stinking thinking. This is the prelude, the word stinking thinking, to the mental condition of alcoholism. We start getting these little slogans that's are the beginning. What do you mean stinking thinking? You know what I mean? What do you mean put some gratitude in your attitude? What do you, these are the kind of things that, I was practicing, but I didn't understand them. But I began to see a little bit, and that was the 10th step. I was beginning to see things. I didn't even know I was aware that much, but I knew that I was starting to see, and I was entering into that pause between the response and the action occasionally. And so, what starts to happen is, when the disease of alcoholism is not treated, we manifest dysfunction, right? Like, we manifest this ego self, these false personas, however you want to label it. We start manifesting the distortions based on these misunderstandings and misperceptions, and there's a lot of bad consequences to this. And so, and I started to see this. I started to see there's a line in the 12 and 12. I love it. It says, kindness, courtesy, and justice will bring you into harmony with almost anyone. And, like, other people are frequently sick. I just started to see, I'd have these moments where I had these moments of awareness where I saw how I was affecting other people. I remember, my son was a very difficult kid to raise. He was a redhead, and his favorite word was no. He started a fight with me when I took him to Disney World. Okay. I mean, he was like, he spit in my face when he was 5 years old because he didn't want to do something. I mean, he was a tough bastard to write. He was tough. And I remembered when I, one point, he wouldn't clean his room up. He was 13. I took away his allowance, started selling the sneakers. I mean, it was like a tough run. At one point, I'd ask him to do something, and he wouldn't listen. I'd be kind of calm the second time, the third time, and the fourth time, I wouldn't scream, but I'd become like as angry as Rambo. I mean, I'd be like, the rage that would come inside of me. I wouldn't yell at him. I wouldn't put my hands on him, but the aggression and the anger and the frustration that he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do, which is part of what Bill's talking about. We want this world that we live in to conform to what we want. We want people to do what we want. And this is really, and there's in the same thing with AA and Al-Anon. I mean, this delusion of trying to manage the uncontrollable is like, having a fight with the ocean. It's futile. But the frustrations that, but of course the feeling is, one of the great lie is, if you would only do what I wanted you to do, I sure would feel better. You know what I mean? And so, but at one point I had this moment outside of my body and awareness where I overreacted to my son at one point, and I saw myself, and I said, wow, this guy's got to put up with me. Wow, I'm not an easy guy to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, and I had that moment where I experienced like tremendous compassion for him, and because the effect of no emotional sobriety, being held hostage by the bondage of self, is to manifest all these self-centered behaviors. And if the self-centered behaviors continue long enough, then I behave harmfully, and I withhold love. I'm opinionated. I'm intolerant. I mean, all the things that come out of it. I mean, so if these things if I'm not aware of how this is working inside of me, then the next thing you know is that I'm causing harm. And a big moment for me was when I was in, anyway, so it drove me back into Al-Anon. I was in Al-Anon I want to tell you how I got sober. I got sober. I went to Al-Anon before I went to AA because I used to like to try to pick up the girls in Al-Anon. I didn't, and so I went to Al-Anon to pick up women. And before I even knew, I was still drinking, and I like being the center of attention in Al-Anon. And the craziest chick always liked me the most. And so anyway, so I was trying to pick up chicks, and I didn't even hear anything about the alcoholic. I was the alcoholic. Anyway, so I went back to Al-Anon, and you know, it's amazing how the spirit speaks through people, even though we don't. Some people that I don't like. And so at one point I went there, you know, kind of really emotionally distraught about my relationship with my kid. And this woman who I really didn't like, named Ina, came up to me. And she said to me, the way you're behaving and the way you're controlling and your aggression and the way you're trying to tell your son what to do and how to do it and when to do it is interfering with his spiritual growth. And when she said that, I felt sick in my stomach, because the last thing I ever want to do is interfere with someone's spiritual growth. That's like a values violation for me. And I was doing it. I was interfering with his spiritual growth. And so there are those moments when the experience of the wisdom sharing just kind of blew open my head, and I could see something I couldn't see before, and I experienced something. And for me, you know, part of the gift of being a sober man has been the enthusiasm and energy that the higher power has infused me with and released in me for AA. I have no idea why. After 36 years, I feel the same passion and enthusiasm for AA I did 36 years ago. I mean, there's no logic to it, and it's not me. And so anyway, but that moment gave me this moment of clarity. I still didn't understand the mental condition of alcoholism. I still couldn't tell you I really understood it. But I started to get this. I had that sincere remorse, which I think is necessary. There's a real difference between healthy remorse and guilt and shame. And I suffered greatly that I could harm my boy because I take a bullet for my kid. And so anyway, so then I just kind of, I was, working on those Al-Anon steps. And then, one of the Al-Anon miracle is detachment, right? All of a sudden, I'm not taking it personally. I'm not reacting. I'm kind of seeing what's going on. I'm able to be in that position of neutrality. I'm in that place where I've slowly kind of at times entered into the spirit, where there's a gentleness, because I was so angry at myself and so angry. My self-critic was like, I call it the prison guard within. That's what I call my inner critic, a bitch slapping prison guard. And that's how I treated myself. If I didn't do something right, man, oh man, I get a beating. I get a beating like from a prison guard. And that was going on until maybe 10, 11, 12 years sober. I could not derive good feelings from the good stuff I did. And it was tormenting, and it was despairing. And those, during the course of those times, I just remember it. I remembered at one point, just, my wife had cancer. She almost died. I was handling a lot of things. I was an alcoholism counselor. I had 40 people on my caseload. I mean, I was sponsoring 4 guys. I was showing up for life. I wasn't running, and I couldn't even feel good about myself. I still had criticisms of myself, and it drove me to a feeling of despair. And I remember just crying out and saying, God, I just can't take this. I just can't take, I couldn't feel. And I didn't understand. I didn't have the grace at that point and the healing to see what was really happening because I was so identified inside of it. And so, as we know that part of the gift of sobriety is kind of learning who you are and not who you're not. And so, and you start, and so some of the veils and the distortions part for a minute. And then the real big thing happened is really at one point when I completed, I did a few 9 steps where I was rocketed into another dimension of I don't know, more than when I did the 5th step. I did a few 5th steps where I just, I felt released. And then I start to feel some releases, like some releases from the self-hatred and the self-criticism. And all through this point, I'm a devoted member of AA and just doing the very best I can to be of help in any way I can. I was kind of relentless. I've been relentlessly involved in AA and I love AA and every day I just want to say thank you. And of course, one of the beautiful things that happens that creates some space. So true, like Bill talks about, he talks about that stability inside, that sense of moving from having to help people to stay sober, to wanting to help others, to experiencing the privilege of helping others. And that's a really powerful progression. And as that progression happened within me, that's when I started to feel this release of gratitude in my soul. And not just practicing a gratitude list, but not having to practice a gratitude list, kind of just waking up in the morning and saying, thank you, God, just feeling that, like, just that feeling. And there's an energy of gratitude, which is so, it's beyond describing. And throughout this time, I've just been fortunate, I'd go to see Sister Claire and she'd say, well, why don't we pray together? Let's read the Psalms together. I said, what the hell, let's do that. I did these prayer sessions where I started to visualize my heart opening up and things coming out of it. I mean, I had a lot of wild experiences. I mean, I really did. I thought I was going to be struck Catholic at one point. I was up at the monastery. I said, holy shit, what's going to happen to me now? Like I'm looking at the crosses. I said, oh, this is freaking me out. I'm just like, I don't know why I'm, and she just says to me, you're just terrified to let go. And so, but she was so loving and kind. She'd do art therapy with me. She'd read things to me. She said, go off and pray for a couple hours. And I'll tell you, she became my spiritual director. I'm a Jewish kid from New York. How do I know? I don't know. What do I know? I became a Jewish Buddhist. Now I'm nothing. But I mean, I'm led up to, here I am. I'm in a Catholic monastery with Sister Claire, And so, I mean, this is the gift of all of a sudden, 20 years I used to go to see her. So I can't emphasize enough the language, that learning from others through the language of the heart. This is the seed that puts inside of me awakens later, and it opens up later. And so and so I didn't understand so many of the things in the big book the way I have now, and I didn't understand that. I could read it, I could intellectualize it, but I couldn't understand that resentments were just, all they were was my thoughts. They had no meaning. I didn't know that. I had no understanding of that. But I really began to experience through being a loving human and really caring about others and taking responsibility for my own reactions and caring deeply about being beneficial with a real sincerity that somehow my heart began to change very, very deeply. And like we go into the miracle of the 6th and 7th step, all of a sudden, I thought I'm going to get rid of all these things. I'm going to do it. I didn't think it was a Tony Robbins behavior modification program, but I did think that it was a binary relationship. I do 10 things right, I'm going to get it released. That's how I thought at first. I didn't. And then I all of a sudden heard the message from someone, and I said, well, they said to me, look in the rearview mirror, look at some of the changes. He used to be really an angry guy. And so overreacting, and you're kind of calm more than ever. And you're now, just like we manifest the dysfunctional behaviors of the self, if I believe that if we're in the spirit and we're experiencing some of the God consciousness, then this divine energy is expressing itself through us. And so I didn't realize you gotta have to work so hard. I thought I had to, like, be a blue collar AA member, man. I got to work hard. Got to show up with the lunch pail and get to work, brother. Get to work, okay? and I didn't understand. Kurt used to said something to me a while ago that this isn't about managing our life through spiritual principles, and I didn't understand that. And even till maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and I realized there was a kind of transactional relationship that I had with the principles. And I didn't realize that this, through prayer, through kind of a contemplative meditative experience of being open, that in that position of neutrality, where the spirit is roomy, inclusive, where there's no bias, no prejudice, there's just out of that place of beingness, in that place, I just naturally act well. Not that I'm perfect, but I mean, I don't have to kind of say, okay, my 5-point plan today is to be kind. I'm going to be kind to Bill. I'm going to be nice to Kurt. I'm going to work on getting rid of my anger. I'm going to really work on assertiveness. I'm going to be a man of integrity. I don't have to do all that, because the consciousness of the Creator, when I'm open and it's expressing itself through me, in me, around me, then there's a more natural experience. And I don't agree with some of the things that Bill says in here. It's really interesting. It's funny. He says, there's one thing he says in here, which I realized that I don't identify with. He said, I had to use all my willpower, reinforced by whatever grace I could secure. I found I had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people. I can't cut off my emotional dependencies with my will. Forget about it. You know what I mean? I can be aware of them. I can't. How am I going to get rid of them? But then I started to see them, and start having a little more fun with them, really. Because at the end of the day, when I'm in that place where my thinking is dominating me and I'm so involved in it, then the bottom line is you can, it's like, here it goes. Here's the movie. I'm not getting my way. You're not being nice to me. You're not being nice to me. You really aren't. Can I tell you what's wrong with you and what you ought to be doing? I'm having a hard time. I want you to really pay attention to me. I need you to behave a certain way so I'm secure. I mean, it's just like a movie. It's really like a B-rated movie at this point for me, watching that. It really is. And so and I do believe that humor is one of the real signs of grace, where I've been fortunate with some kooky and amazing. One of my sponsors was a really kooky guy named Jack Kelly, and I love Jack. And Jack used to say to me, "You're so intense, you give me a headache." You know what I mean? And he says it's going to be a 3 Excedrin call or a 2 Excedrin call. I just want to know before I get started here. You know what I mean? Because you're a guy with a lot of serious problems, and I need to really be strong. And I had people kind of not making fun of me, but making light of the mental condition. And I can't emphasize how that was so helpful, because through the experience of the humor, I was now able to start to see that this was all a mental condition of thinking. There's, that the only thing that was really happening in my mind that was causing me afflictive emotions was thoughts, and thoughts that didn't even mean anything. Like, oh, and they didn't mean it. They're just a thought, but that's it. And of course, as we always talk about, the moment when you realize that somehow you've really taken a rocket ship out of the moment and you're living somewhere in the catastrophe of the future, and you're reacting, there's a, and it's such a blessing to kind of be able to watch that. I'm a musician. One of the things I do, and music is very mathematical, and it's also, there are patterns. Like when you play the blues, it's 12 bars, and I see the nature of this mental condition, this ego, and all the living in the future, living in the past. I start to see it as just kind of the play of the mind, and I don't feel hostage to it anymore, and I don't have to, so what Bill talks about here is I mean, that's how I live. I love people, and I just try to be a loving guy. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not fancy. I don't have a fancy. I just try to show up and love people well, and when you have the gift of experience someone caring deeply about you and expecting nothing from you, and you have many experiences of that, that is what they say about is a revolutionary spiritual experience which changes the way we look at life. And so when I have experienced a lot of that, that is grace. That I somehow let that in from some wonderful people. And I can't even describe, it's hard to put words to the experience of being deeply loved and accepted, and seeing the fallacy of all the delusional things. And Kurt and I are always talking about that line about the thousands of manifestations of self. Well, at one point you begin to see, am I naturally living more in a way principled? Is everything bothering me? Am I able to go through some difficult situations with a sense of humor? I'm making other people pay when I don't get what I want. When you start to see that that's not the modus operandi anymore, it is, I mean, it's just like, it's nice. It's like I didn't know the load could be lighter. I really didn't. And the load could be lighter, and the beautiful mystery of all of it. And then of course the joy is because the reality is, there is only one moment to live, and this is it. It's not a Hallmark card that you don't get tomorrow. And thank God I don't have to go to a funeral to say, oh, I really want to get busy living. Like I want to appreciate my life now that I watch somebody in the casket. I don't have to do that anymore. And so, I don't know. I think that I don't have much more to say. I'm going to wrap up with a few little thoughts here. As we all know, sobriety is an evolutionary process, and it is. And but the sense of goodness that begins to radiate from our hearts towards others, when that becomes a natural flow, and that becomes one of the deepest desires that you have, is to be a channel, and to basically be able to provide that kind of love to others without a hook, without asking for credit. When that becomes a behavior that is natural, there's a tremendous stability that happens inside, and the emotional life is not, for me, tormented. I mean, I'm certainly not perfect by any means, but I went through cancer a couple of years ago, pretty much with a sense of humor, most of it, and like, it was like, why? Because I watch guys, I watch guys in AA, I watch guys in AA go through everything, laughing, helping others. One of my friends who died of AIDS, he looked like a Holocaust victim at the end, and he's hanging out in the hospital with his bony ass sticking out, playing fantasy football, like weighing 74 pounds, and having fun, and not being a burden to people. And I watch people, just kind of meet life, because the spirit was expressing itself through them. And so I've learned a lot in AA, not just through people talking to me. I really haven't. One of the men who helped Susan when she had cancer, he founded something in cancer care called sponsorship. So matching people up with somebody who's recovered from cancer. I've met people in AA who've done things and never talk about it. I came from the school, do more, talk less. That's what the guys taught me. Don't stop blowing your horn about what you do and your sponsors and all the service you do. Just kind of be quiet. Just do it. It doesn't count if you talk too much about it. And so anyway, I want to read one thing and then I'll wrap it up. Hope something I said will be helpful. This is from a mystic who I love. And his name is John Tarrant. He says, when we turn towards spirit, it compels us to its mode in which eternity is everlastingly present within our lives, making the smallest moment vibrant and full of color. Our underlying doubts about existence soften, and the constricting attachment to the narrow received aspects of consciousness is weakened. The transparency of the world amazes us. As each moment we are surprised anew by the clarity of what we see, our undeniable connection to the source. We have come home at last, no longer alone on the earth, and no longer bound by these stories which are not true. So thanks for letting me share.
Oh, Mitchell, man, what a great share. I'm Sam, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Dawn is not feeling well tonight and asked me if I could come help quarterback the rest of the meeting. But man, what a great share. I related so much to everything that you said. And one of the things I found myself doing a couple days ago as I was coming home from the gym, I actually watched, and this happens all the time, but I become much more aware of it. I actually watched myself coming up with a problem about a relationship with my wife. And I'm like, I'm just watching it form. Like I'm watching this I'm watching this discontented stuff happening. And then I go, that's not even fucking true. Like, that's not even true. I mean, come on, man, you made that up. Like are you trying? And it's like restless, irritable, and discontentedness looking for an excuse, you know? And then I just let it go and laughed about it, you know? And that's something I could never do for took years and years and years. But I'll actually watch those patterns. I'll be, oh yeah, you've got a lot of really good stuff going on right now. You know, pretty much no waves going on. Your brain's trying to create some problems, you know, trying to find something to worry about and get angry at. So Mitchell, what we do here is you'll pick two people and then we'll open it up to all who would like to share. So just look at the Hollywood squares, point out two people. You're muted. You muted yourself again.
Hey, Bill D.
Bill D.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bill D., alcoholic from Minnesota. And I'm grateful to be called and thank you for your share. It was just incredible. I can relate that, you know, you're a sick man because I can relate. And, you know, those growth spurts in this, I guess you call it spirituality, emotional sobriety. I've been sober a while myself. And at 5 years, I came unglued. At 10 years, I came unglued. Stayed sober, came unglued. At 15 years, Mr. Spiritual took a contract out on a man's life, you know, and I ended up falling apart at that stage. I crumbled to my knees worse than my first step surrender. God, I need help. I need help and I will do anything. And it came from way down deep inside. And once I dropped to my knees and literally gasping for breath and dry heaving, before I get too carried away, I did call off the contract. God came to me whenever I was ready. And since then, I have been seeking and seeking and seeking. And one of the things that I've learned is in service, I get. And in service with people that I don't necessarily think I agree with, if I can be quiet, I learn a lot. So this honest, open, willing, it still carries true even today. I pray, meditate, and it does come natural. I don't have a list anymore, and I can just go through the day, and I catch myself laughing and smiling at just the most mundane thoughts. I find myself in gratitude prayers like all the time. I can walk around here, you know, I'm in Minnesota and it's cold, and I'll go down in my utility room and go, thank you, furnace, right? I mean, it could be just anything. It doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm just so grateful. I'm in love with being in love with life. I'm in love with wonder. And I never would have ever thought that could happen to a guy like me. So thank you.
Thank you. Gary, would you like to share? You're on mute, Gary. Can't hear you. Oh, that's okay.
Sorry about that. I loved your talk. I guess I sometimes wish I was back in the days where I had that kind of stuff going on in my head. Sometimes I think I've been around this outfit way too long because I'm missing, it seems like, some of the fun I see and hear with that. But I took my turns at being crazy, and I was sober a long, long time before I learned how to behave like a man and a husband and some guys nodding heads in there. That because they've kind of watched me fumble through all of that, and somehow I made it out, fortunately. But thanks for your share. You touched on things that it took me a long time to grab a hold of. And, it's been a good time. It's good to hear Bill again too. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. One more person. Juanita, would you like to share? And then I'll open it up for everybody.
Hi, thanks, Mitchell. You know, I related so much when you were talking about your son, and you said something that you said, there's some stuff I don't agree with in this, and that was this thing about Bill exerting all his will, you know, and boy, I'll tell you, I spent so much of my life exerting my will to no avail. You know, it reminds me of where the book says, the Biblical Alcoholics Anonymous says, if a better code of morals and philosophy were, paraphrasing, all that was needed, I'd be doing great, right? I mean, if I could just exert my will, man, I'd be doing really good, you know? And I needed God. I needed God. I needed those 12 steps, and I needed God because on my own power, it was not possible. With God, though, with God, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at the person who's walking around in this shell today, you know, because certainly isn't the woman who walked into the Fellowship of Al-Anon over 35 years ago. And I'm grateful for that. And none of it was my doing. None of it was my willpower. Mine was only, all it was submitting myself to the power and the love of God. And as some of your readings were talking about, I believe, being willing to love and receive love, you know, because really that's what it's all about. Thanks a lot, Mitchell. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's just open it up to whoever would like to share. Just either raise your
Yeah,
hand.
just raise your hand and
Raise your hand.
we'll
Okay.
call on you.
Yeah. Okay. Or you can use that in the anybody the participant thing here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, there's a lot of.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
What about Jim? Jim P from Seattle. He was about to, hey buddy.
Hey guys, Mitchell, Jim Alcoholic,
Hi, Jim.
and thank you. That was a beautiful talk, and you know what I heard there. You know, there are a few key words. You know, channel, natural. You know, things that my will are incapable, or my mind. I kind of bring those two things together, or ego, and they're all kind of lined up together, that I don't have the ability, to climb my way out of a paper bag when it comes to emotionally, regulating myself with my, I think what was kind of formed with me looking back, with my maturity level on my emotions, a lot of those kind of are sticky from a very young age. And, when they show up at now age 50, I can't kind of coax and soothe it enough to regulate before I react. And so what I'm learning and what I understand from what you found and me as well, fortunately, is, if this is going to be natural channel, I've got to spend enough time listening to God, with my practice. Recently I've been doing a lot of breath work where I just bring in the presence of God with my in and my out, as with gratitude, as you spoke of, for this gift of life. And more times than not, 20 breaths in, I'm in the present moment, in the now. And if I'm in the now, I have a lot less chance of harming somebody else, let alone myself emotionally. So that's what I'm learning. And that was just man, that was an amazing talk. That was just a bell ringer. So thank you kindly, Mitchell.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jim.
What about Tom O from Rhode Island? Hadn't heard from you in a while. Tom, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Sam. Thanks for calling on me. There we go. Well, this is an interesting topic this evening, emotional sobriety. Where have I heard that before? We've been on this topic for over a year now, right? And it's amazing. I never even was aware of this essay until I was suggested that I join this meeting. And I'm not mistaken, I think it was over a year ago. And boy, I could have used this topic when I was working and in career field. I could have used it when I was raising, our 3 kids at home. And the talk tonight by Mitchell reminded me of my middle kid. And at the time I was newly, sober, and I had a drug and alcohol therapist I was working with. God rest his soul. Tim Quinn is his name. And man, he was so good with me. He also was a recovered alcoholic. And so he really knew his stuff. And I would talk to him about all the troubles I was having with my son. And my son was the kind of kid that, would argue that whether the sun was going to come up tomorrow or not, and you'd say, yeah, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. And he would tell you it wasn't. And he would give you 10 reasons why he knew it wasn't. And he was right and you were wrong. So Tim gave me some of the best advice, really, I could ask or hope for. And the one thing he said to me, which was really important, I think at that time, my middle kid was like 13. And I don't know, I've read where there's nobody angrier than a 13-year-old boy, teenage boy. And that was, I think, my son's problem. I think he had a lot of anger. But anyways, he was angry at me. And Tim told me, well, Tom, I think you've done the best that you can do up till now. And now what you need to do is step back and let your wife take over. And, I did that. I took that suggestion and I totally just stepped back and I let my wife take over. And today, that middle guy is a grown man and he is really something to behold. And, I'm very proud of him and he's very successful. And emotionally, he's probably, for his age, a lot more mature than I was at his age. And so in life, emotional maturity or sobriety, what it means to me is being able to take suggestions, being able to, accept that somebody else has a better idea than I do. Because there's been a lot of instances in my life, a lot of proof that my best ideas, weren't very productive or helpful or kind, even. So I have to continue to do that analysis, that self-analysis continually. So thanks for the meeting, Sam. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sam, I'm gonna pick Emily B.
Oh my goodness. Hello, I'm Emily. I'm an alcoholic. That threw me off. I'm like, let's get some heavy hitters in here. It threw me off. Goodness gracious. Thank you for sharing. I actually, the book that you mentioned, I actually just got on Amazon. I was like, those are really cool. I just really like, and I liked how you touched on the language of the heart and sort of, it's funny, I used to run a gratitude group at my job, working with like patients and stuff. Anyway, I used to run a gratitude group, and I would talk about the importance of gratitude in people's recovery. And the more I did that group, I actually don't know that I don't know. It's like a weird relationship I have, I think, with the word gratitude, that I feel like it's a hard thing, you know, and I could write lists all day long and you know, intellectualize it. And it just doesn't, it's just a different thing. And I really appreciate too what you shared about how like we don't have to work so hard at some of the stuff. You know, I've definitely had a lot of prayers last week even, where I was like, it's like a Christmas list, right? It's like, God, please grant me, you know, the ability to be this, and this. And it's like, wait a minute. Like I just, it's funny, Dawn used to share with me too. She's like, God is not the dope man. Like we get to do that. And it's not transactional. And sometimes I wish it was, I really do, because it's, you know, when I was using drinking, I knew what would happen when I would put a certain substance into my body. And I knew how that would, I knew in a way how I would feel, and I could control that. And so the spiritual experience, however, I'm finding that it is little to do with knowing what's going on at all, and just remaining in a position of willingness. And I really needed to hear a lot of that, because I don't know that I've been very loving and tolerant of myself or others. So yeah, I really appreciated your share. Thank you so much for calling on me, and I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Who else would like to share?
What about Kurt Z?
Okay, Kurt Z.
Hey, buddy, that was just very enjoyable for me. I've just enjoyed our last year together, you know, and I like the way that you brought in this kind of stage specific, you know, how it was in the beginning, you know, and then, you know, in Al-Anon, there's a thing, they say evolution and maturation towards wholeness. And I mean, that definitely has been my case. I mean, I drank it 20 years. It was so obvious. What came up for me was, it was so obvious when I got released. What was obvious was that for 19 years, I'd been managing my life with spiritual principles and I didn't know it. And when that became very clear, I didn't figure that out. It was almost like a download. And it was very clear that this condition of self, I was identified as the condition. That wasn't me. And I never got that. I never got it. You know, I never got it. I never saw it in the book. I never saw where it said being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what defeated us. And we were the us and the self was the condition. I always thought that was me. And as long as it was me, I couldn't be free from it. And when you were talking about that, you know, and we've had this conversation before about this, you know, when you have a deep revelatory experience, the effect of that experience is a deep sense of unconditional love, grace, gratitude, humility, clarity, appreciation for life. Bill said it. I mean, all the people, I was just loving this because Gary got to share, and Bill got to share, and you were sharing it. And you know, this meeting is, you know, that's what I like about this meeting, because it's a deeper into the pool than the regular AA meetings where you hear it talk about, drinking and stuff like that. And it's not a critique on those meetings. It's very stage specific. And I just, my heart just lights up. I love to talk to you, and I love to have discourse with you, and I love to, I love traveling this little journey because this is what it's about. And I just think that gratitude that Emily talked about, that sense. I think it was David Steindl-Rast. He's a monk. He said, it's a byproduct. Gratitude is a byproduct. It's an effect. And the effect is, happiness, this happiness and gratitude, they're hooked together. And that gratitude was a deep, deep sense of, oh my God, like I'm not separate. The condition tells me I'm separate. I always say it. You've heard me say it. Thank God I'm not suffering from what's not happening anymore. See, I got that thing you were talking about. I got that most of this is thought. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. That's what the book says. Well, that's pretty obvious to me. So that means I got to quit listening to the mind and start to back into that conscious awareness that was awakened and develop that, grow in effectiveness and understanding, do all the things the book talks about. So it was a pleasure listening to you tonight, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you for all your help, brother. I love you. Linda, would you like to share?
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda. Thank you, Mitchell. I love your energy and your depth and your humor and everything. And it's been wonderful getting to know you and Susan and with your visit out here. I guess what resonated with me the most is that one statement that you said, that when you went into Al-Anon and the woman said that you're interfering with your son's spiritual experience. And I was just thinking how not only do we, when I went into Al-Anon, did I interfere with my husband's spiritual experience, but my own spiritual experience. And, that was the beauty of entering into here. And I remember when I first came in and I said, what do I do? And they said, you don't do anything. Why don't you just listen and try not doing anything? Because I lived so much either in the past or the present. And I just kind of, couldn't be in the now. I was, trying to get someone sober. I thought that, when all this happens, I'm going to be okay. And what this program, taught me to do was to just be comfortable with not knowing and with just, being here. And then I found that by not doing anything and kind of stepping back and listening, I always thought that God was out there. And when I got quiet and I stopped, managing and controlling, which I couldn't do with my own will, but, by just, coming in and learning, what it was to just step back and allow some space. And, that's when I found God inside of me. And, I too now, I've done so much seeking and over the years, and I tried so many different things. And it's just so funny how, my favorite phrase is, effort prepares us for grace. Grace can't be willed or planned, but only entered into. And, I think that this is what it's all about. I just look back and there's just no way I could have done anything differently. It has been an evolution. And I still find myself, in times trying to manage and control. And I get scared and I go into my fear stories. And now the difference is that I see what it is and I can step back and, and that's really helpful. Trusting over the years, looking back and seeing kind of the tapestry that's been woven. And, and the developed faith in God rather than having to believe in something. And so anyways, I also think, like, I remember with my son, yeah, I was so worried he was going to be an alcoholic. And when he was 5 years old, I already started trying to like stop him from becoming an alcoholic. And I thought if I parented a certain way or gave him everything he wanted, he wouldn't have any reason to want to drink when he got older. And I remember my sponsor saying to me, you know what, Linda, you don't have that kind of power. Like if your son is an alcoholic, he's going to be an alcoholic. And if he's not, he won't. And, it's just amazing, to come in and look back at all the power that I thought that I had. And, to be able to give up that job because it's a heavy duty job to be God, to play God.
Mm.
So anyway, thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate your share.
One thing one
Hi,
thing
Bill.
Sister Claire taught me one point. She said, in terms of these crippling dependencies are again thoughts, right? They're the thoughts. She said, make a list of that goes like this. She said, I will only be happy when, and I will only be happy if, and look at all the conditions that you've placed, which are fallacious conditions and they're delusions. And that's the only way you're going to be happy. And which is it's the same thing of like seeking that happiness from things that can't give you happiness. And it's beautiful. Connie?
Hi, I'm Susan, aka Connie, alcoholic. Good to be here. That was really beautiful, honey. There was so much. I mean, hard to even start about where I was thinking about how you were talking about our son Sam and the way you treated him, and the difference in the way that I treated him. And for me, it was more like, I'm going to beat you into submission emotionally, right? I'm going to get you to do what I want you to do, and I'm going to do it in any way that I have to do it. And for the most part, it was, what was done to me, which was the silent scorn and the removal of attention or love or, whatever it was that ended up causing, even more pain at the end for me and him and really for the whole family. But at the end of the day, what you were saying too about how, everything, for me was like in the box. It had to look like this. I had the ABCs of how to do everything so that it would be okay. But it was really only okay because it was just survival. Because at the end of the day, I had so much emotion, so much emotional wounding and so much emotional pain inside that I didn't know how to survive other than, with the, those defects of character that were protecting me from my own, emotional pain and from the grips of just not being able to feel like I was loved or that I was, connected to in any way. So I just, for the most part, what I did was I just used what was used for, to me, which was a lot of criticism and a lot of judgment. I did it to you, I did it to the kids, but mostly I did it to myself. And that judgment actually was a way of keeping me from my own self and keeping me from God and keeping me from really being vulnerable and being willing to, connect with, you as a husband, to connect to, friends, to let anybody really in a deep level, because I know that if you really knew who I really was, you wouldn't love me, you wouldn't accept me, you wouldn't, you'd criticize me like it was when I was a kid. And so this process for me of that emotional dependency on, the protection is what's really been changing a lot for me lately. And it is really going from, kind of recognizing how hard I am on myself all the time, no matter what it is. I cannot make a mistake without really heavily judging myself, big or small. And being okay with now saying, you know what, it's okay to be nice to yourself. And you know what's underneath that niceness is love and is God and is freedom and is connection and is people in your life that really, really do care and that really don't want to, be mean to you or, or to hurt you. They just really want to share with you and trust you and let me trust them. And this emotional sobriety for me has been all about that, coming into who I really am. And I'm sharing that very vulnerably because this is not something I would share in a meeting, but this isn't a regular meeting. You know, like someone said, I think, Kurt, it wasn't this isn't an AA meeting. You know, this is a get real, get down to it meeting. And you brought that out in me tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Clint, do you want to share?
Hey, Mitchell. I'm not going to say thanks for calling on me, but I'm like, man, you got so much friggin' energy. It blows my mind. By the time you're done with the fifth sentence, I'm just starting to get the first one, So I love your share, we share so many things in common. And I think a lot, I think that's the beauty of what Alcoholics Anonymous is really about, is that we all go through pretty much the same thing, and it just comes out in different ways. But I appreciate your show. I always like listening to you, Mitchell. It's good seeing the gang on here. They haven't been on here in a while, so it's good to be back with the group. And thanks for your share.
Thanks, Clint. Who doesn't want to, who's like nervous to kind of share in this meeting that would like to share for the first time? Anybody want to jump in? We'd like to let you feel part of it. Okay, well.
Hey, Mitchell, real
Yeah.
quick, a couple of the questions that I've seen come up
Oh, yeah, okay.
that we ask people a lot is, what are some of the books you've been into over the last
okay.
3 or 4 years?
Well, I'm into this, I'm into that, A New Pair of Glasses with Chuck C. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that book. Kurt turned me on to this book by Durkheim, which I love. What's it called, Kurt? The Way of Transformation. That's right. That's a book I read. I'm really kind of into that. And I'm into that New Scene for Contemplation by Thomas Merton. I really dig that. And what else I got? And one thing that Kurt and I've been talking about, the first few lessons in this Course in Miracles, I don't know if anybody's into it, but the first few lessons are really about the self that has no reality. And it's really powerful. Anyway, so I'm doing a little bit of studying on that, and Kurt, God bless him, has kind of unlocked the mystical dimension of the Big Book to me, which has been really. I always dug the Big Book, but I never connected the same way with kind of seeing the non-duality of the Big Book and understanding the Big Book. Because I believe in God consciousness, but I don't believe in a theistic God. I don't believe, and those are some of the books. And I like Pimi's Children. I dig her. Anyway,
The quote you quoted at the end of your talk again by that specific mystic. I had somebody ask me that question.
Yeah, this guy is amazing. His name is John Tarrant, and he's a psychotherapist. He's an artist, and he's been a Zen master for 25, 30 years. And he has a unique way of using poetry and art to express, just like Thomas Merton, some of the he puts language to some of these internal states of consciousness that is so, God, it just grabs you, it's just beautiful, and so those are the books I've been kind of getting into really, and really at this point. And I've also been reading Don Coyus's his meditations with Native American elders. I've been reading. He has a beautiful book. It's a one day at a time book it's called Meditations with Native American Elders, and he's had a deep influence on Kurt. And the Native American spiritual understanding to me is so deeply profound and so right on. One of the things that he told Kurt that he told me was never ask for something. It's a Native American prayer. Never ask for something until you say thank you first for something else. That's deep. Anyway, who'd like to share? We have about 11 minutes. I'll call on somebody, but if anybody wants to talk, we'd love to give you some freedom to talk. I think I'm going to call on Clover. She's got a very nice smile.
Clover.
Very nice smile.
You're up.
Oh, you were feeling it, and I was running around listening to you. Okay, Mitchell, everything. I just have to say thank you. Thank you, number one, for this meeting, for the service of putting this meeting on. I rarely get to attend because I'm a lunatic of a single mom, which is why you guys saw me running around making dinner, which I apologize for. But I have to have my camera on because it's so not intimate if it's not on. I even started the meeting at the poolside, watching my daughter swim, because that's just the world of a single mom in sobriety. And I'm loving it. And I get the gift of being in both programs today and being here with all of you. I was so excited. I'm an excitable person, and everything you said excited me. I loved all of it. I was in flow with everything you said. The words you said were dynamic, and I was right on point with it, and I was loving it, and I was wanting more. And your beautiful wife, all the things she said, I was just loving it. And I have the gift of being here today with both my sponsors being on here, which is kind of blowing my mind. I got on and I saw that and I was like, is this happening at the same moment right now? This is incredible. So this is just awesome. I absolutely agree with you. And how you describe love and that freedom that we get of just existing, right? When we can just find that peace, when we can just exist and find peace within ourselves and peace within the world, and we can freely give it and freely receive it and really expect nothing back. And it's incredible. And it's just an incredible journey. And this last year has been an incredible journey for me, where I have found myself with the gift of the program and the gift of finding myself on the ground in trauma like I've never experienced before, and getting to be a widow and a single mom. And wow, here we go. And learning through that and figuring out how to do it, and coming out still, because of the gift of all the things that you described, I can live in gratitude today, and I can freely love. And I want everyone to know that this love is so available to them. And I love how you described it, and your authenticity in showing it, and humor, yes, is so needed every second of every day. And I see hands going up, so I'm going to stop, because I always want to hear what more people have to say, because everyone is so much smarter and has so many gifts to share with us. Bless all of you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. David H., then Sarah R.
Hey everyone, Dave, alcoholic. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yeah.
So thank you so much. Love the share, love this meeting. It's inspirational to hear, where you've got to. And this meeting has been great for me. The last couple of years since Zoom has started, I was at 10 years sobriety when the pandemic hit, and I, like you shared, I kind of hit I've taken a turn and got a little bit deeper in my program, and this has really helped. So I just thought I would share some progress I've made. You see, I'm wearing the headphones. My wife is having like a games night in the other room on Zoom, but I can hear her, she's yelling. And so a couple minutes before this meeting, I'm like, I can't do the meeting listening to this noise in the other room. And that voice just starts going off. She should be respectful of my, I need to have a meeting. She's having a fun night. And that voice is just going off. And I just went up and I calmly was like, you know what, I'll just get headphones. I'll put it on. But it's happening, right? There's an internal battle. That voice really wants to, and like, I think I'll be fine. I'll let it go. But, how many nights have I let that voice just, run wild, and I go up to bed, I'm resentful, and, she should be doing this and that. And it's, I don't want to waste time anymore with this crazy thinking, right? So it's nice to see progress, and I'm getting there, and to see, hear that there's hope for me to come out the other side. Anyways, yeah, it was a fantastic share. Thank you so much. There was actually, you reminded me, a few weeks ago, a guy in this meeting also shared, and he had a line, self-awareness without humor is depression, which I really like. Basically, it said the same thing. So anyways, thanks everyone. Thanks for this meeting and wish everyone the best.
Thank you. Sarah,
Joanna, alcoholic.
Sarah, you want to share? You have your hand up.
Go ahead and let Joanna go. She had her hand up a few minutes ago.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks. Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for your chair. I really liked what you had to say. This is my opinion, but I do believe that we have different tasks in recovery. Our first task is to put the plug in the jug, and which is what you talked about for quite some years. You basically figured out how to not drink and not use, which is our first task. But then I think we have other tasks. And so one of the things you said, which I totally agree with, is we have to figure out who we are. And even though our third step prayer says, free me from the bondage of self, we better have a self to give up, or else what are we giving up? It's going to be problematic to give up a self that we don't have. So I believe that we do need to figure out who we are in order, yes, and then we do need to let go of it. That I also believe. But if we don't have a self to let go of, it's really going to be a problem. And I'm going to read, since we're sharing books here, I'm going to read from one of my favorite books because it informs the spirituality of my program in AA. And that is from Sharon Salzberg's book, Loving Kindness. And she is a meditation teacher. She's not you don't have to have a certain belief. It's not a faith thing, it's a practice thing. So she's part of Spirit Rock and part of Barry, in Barry, Massachusetts, there's another meditation center. And she says, desire, grasping, clinging, greed, attachment is a state of mind that defines what we think we need in order to be happy. We project all of our hopes and dreams of fulfillment onto some object of our attention. This may be a certain activity or outcome, a particular thing or person. Deluded by our temporary enchantment, we view the world with tunnel vision. That object and that alone will make us happy. And I've read that many a time in recovery, and it's really helped me because it broadens my mind. And of course, the steps, I am a firm believer of the steps. So I think the first 3 steps are, if I practice those principles, the 12th step says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So, and that's certainly been my experience. I practice these 11 things every day. I can't renege on them or take a holiday or say, okay, I've reached it. No. I have to practice humility, self-honesty, open-mindedness, hope, all these principles in the steps, and then I get a spiritual awakening. And certainly I can attest to that. I've been around here for a few 24 hours, and I have had many a spiritual awakening. So thank you for your chair. I really appreciated hearing what you had to say. It was a great chair. I enjoyed it. And yes, humor is important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarah R., do you want to take us out? You hand us up. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, sure. I'll share real quick. I'm Sarah. I'm an alcoholic from Frisco, Texas. And I'm sorry that I don't have my camera on, but I do have COVID right now and looking pretty scary. I don't want to scare any newcomers. So I'll just share real quick. I really appreciate what you said, Mitchell, about that conference or about your son, because I'm a little over 5 years sober and I was in a really, really good place. And I know it's one day at a time. I'm really deep in my recovery, but like recently I've just been in this paralyzing fear with my daughter. She's 18, and I don't know, maybe there's a certain number of years with our kids and their teens where we have to take a pass on just going, you're going to have paralyzing fear sometimes, but boy, letting go and just not, and discovering or just trying to figure out the difference between control and discipline when your kids are growing up. It's difficult, but I don't want to get in interfere with her spiritual growth. at all. And so I'm going to pray about it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Get better soon.
Thank you, Mitchell. Do you have any final thoughts you may want to that come up?
Oh, no, I'm just very grateful to get a chance to connect with everybody. You know, whenever you share at a meeting, when I share at a meeting, I just feel I'm more connected to everyone. So thanks everyone for their comments and for giving me this opportunity. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mitchell.
Thank you, sir.
I was listening today to on 2 meditations that I was doing. One of them was this guy named George Mumford was leading it. He's the guy that he does a lot of stuff with a lot of athletes like Kobe Bryant and stuff like that. And he said he used to coach Kobe. He'd say, stop trying to score. Play the game. Stop trying to score. Just stop trying to shoot just stop it. And you'll get that if you know what I mean? Like that is kind of the theme of the day. And then you brought, a lot of that stuff up for me. So I thought that was great. Anyway, we will close this meeting, go to our inner room for all who care to join us and say the Lord's Prayer or prayer of your choosing, and meet you back here. Man, great to see everybody.
Thanks, Sam.
Hey, just so everyone knows, we mentioned Don Coyes and a few other people. We have them in the Dropbox from this meeting, their shares. So, and that was posted. Kurt's on there, Juanita's on it. So many people here are on that, on the Dropbox. And then once Bill, also we decided we're gonna have to get Bill to share one of these weeks too. As soon as he said he was hired a hit on somebody, I was like, we got to get him. So you're next, Bill.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'll put you on the hit list.
that's right.
We won't record that one.
That was good, Chris.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. Thank you, Sam. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you,